Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. Great to have you. This is going to be, or at least we will attempt to recreate the Battle of Salamanca, 22nd of July, 1812. And by way of historical background, it goes as such. Following the capture of Badajoz and Ciudad Rodrigo, Wellington advanced into Spain, where Marshal Marmont's army of Portugal awaited him. The two opposing armies sparred for position, each looking to catch the other at a disadvantage. On July 22nd, Marmont found a British force in plain view on a ridge and great clouds beyond the hills to the south. Thinking this was just a rear guard, Marmont made a fatal mistake. Marmont's army had marched into a deadly British ambush. Wellington gave a whoop of delight and set several combined arms counterattacks in motion, starting with an attack by his brother-in-law, Edward Pakenham's 3rd Division against Tholmier's lead division. In the first hour of fighting, 3 of the 8 French divisions were completely smashed, and the French left wing ceased to exist. With Marmont wounded, command fell to General Gloisel, who organized a truly effective combined arms attack that shattered Cole's British division. British reserves, however, were close at hand, and soon Gloisel's forces were also in retreat. Wellington was determined to destroy the entire French army. To that end, he launched the 1st and Light Divisions against the French divisions of Furet and Foy on the French right. The British divisions emerged from hiding behind a ridge, crossed the Pela Garcia River with little opposition, and engaged the surprised French. Furet's 3rd Division, while still in march column, was attacked by the British Guards and was forced back, while Foy's 1st Division attempted to make a stand near Calvarisa de Arriba, but were also driven back. Bloody, but not beaten, these two French formations still managed to hold the British at bay, covering the French retreat toward Alba de Tormes and saving Marmont's army to fight another day. That is the historical background for what is better known as Salamanca, battle that took place on the 22nd of July, 1812. And that is according to the Commands and Colors Napoleonic's epic scenario by the same name. Regarding the scenario, we have all the belligerents set up according to the scenario, as is the topographical features, which I will go over now. We have a river here, a central river, and then one on the right. Now the 2 rivers here are basically fordable pretty much anywhere, and rather than having to stop upon entering a river hex, you can just keep going if you like. This one is only passable over a bridge that is not present here. But we'll pretend there's a bridge here. That's the only way you're going to be able to cross this river. And this is the Azan River. As far as soldiers themselves, we do have the, as you guessed it, British in all their red finery. The French in their melancholy blue. Also, we have for the French 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commanders and a commander-in-chief. For the British, we have 1, 2, what does he not have? A 3, 4, 5, 6 commanders and 1 commander-in-chief. 1, 2, 3, 4, yes. He needs a command information sheet though. Let me pause that and put that on there. Alright, we have that taken care of. The rules that I am using are the homebrewed compilation rules, the Defiler on Parade that I've dubbed. And this allows you to hijack the plethora, the myriad of available Commands and Colors Napoleonic scenarios, which again lend themselves to quick setup, everything laid out for you. But that's where the similarity ends, and then this kicks in, and the core rule system is nothing like Commands and Colors. So we'll roll through about as much as this as I feel like rolling through, and go from there. Starting with sequence of play, and that breaks down to the setup / initiative, which we've already done our setup. Also, I would add that these flags here are victory banners that represent victory hexes. There should be a city within the hex, but I can't represent a city and troops within the same hex without abstracting to a level of ridiculousness, more so than I've already done. So what I've simply done is add a victory banner wherever there is supposed to be a village or a city. So setup has been done for us. That leaves initiative, and we'll just hop right to that, shall we? For initiative, we will roll number of dice equal to our number of commanders. So again, for the French, it was what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4, 5, 6, 7. The object of this deal here is to roll as few 5s or 6s as possible. And we have rolled 2 of them. That's for the French. Now we will roll for the British, or the Anglo-Allied. I think there is supposed to be Portuguese or Spanish troops in there. Yeah, Portuguese. I've just left everything British. And they have 1, 2, 3, because I can't remember, 4, 5, 6, 7 as well. Is that right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're looking for 5s or 6s. They rolled. How about that? It's a tie. So in the event of a tie, the French go. So after all that nonsense, it's the French. That's the way to determine initiative. Again, potentially, possibly subject to change, but typically works out just fine. That brings us to the second phase in the turn, which consists of the rally command phase. Now we have nobody to rally because everybody's doing just fine at the moment. But we do need to conduct our command phase now. Since the French are going first, that will consist of the French doing their thing. So we will start with our commander-in-chief, and you may or may not have noticed I have squad leader counters representing their stats because I have yet to craft proper period adhering counters for these guys, but in the meantime the squad leader counters work just fine. He is a 10 -2, so what he needs to do is roll a 10 or less. Pretty sure he can do that. Yeah, he did that. So he is in command, which means everybody within 3 hexes is in command, that being soldiers and subordinate commanders, so commanders that are of equal or lesser stature. So that means this commander here is in command. 1, 2, 3. He is in command. Right? Yes. And he is in command. 2, 3. That is where it ends. So now we have greater than a 3 hex distance from our next closest in command feller. And 1, 2, 3. So that leaves another roll for this guy is a 9-1. We need to roll 9 or less. He is now in command. 1, 2, 3. He's too far from the other commander who is subordinate to him. So were he in command, this commander would also be in command, but that is not the case because of the distance. We'll roll again for him. He is at 8-1. He rolled a 6, so he's in command, and then that leaves this guy over here who's a 7-0. 7 or less. Everybody's in command. Who would have thunk it? In previous planes, this rarely happens. Usually there's somebody that is out of command. So, as we'll see moving forward, but if somebody were out of command, commander-wise, all that means is that any units within his 3 hex command range would have to roll individually to determine if they can conduct any actions this turn. So that is the end of the morale or the rally command phase, which brings us to the fire phase. Fire phase is just what it sounds. Anybody that was within range can fire. So for our purposes, infantry wise, that is up to 2 hexes unless you're rifles. And then of course your artillery has greater range. So who's within range? We have a unit here, here. This artillery, yes, no, no. And this artillery, just within range of those fellas. So we'll start over here and begin firing. We'll mark who fires so we can keep track of what the hey-who's going on around here. These guys are, what are they? They are light infantry unit. And in order to keep track of that, I probably should mark these guys, but we're not going to follow that too strictly. What we really want to do is let the mechanics of the game show through. So for these light infantry, they have, how does firing work? Well, funny you should ask, because we're going to do that. You start with your die roll modifiers, and you'll go down. So you look for the fire or melee value of these guys. So for the light infantry, I have a fire value of +2. So there's 2. Unit strength, he is a full strength 4. That makes 6. And what are the number of ranks firing? Well, he only gets half of his rank bonus. So that means 6. Where are we at here? Rank bonus firing a 2. Let me verify that. Pause this. Okay, so I need to back up. Not as confusing as I'm making it, but so their fire value is a 2. Actually, I was wrong. Their unit strength is only a 2 as well. Would be a 4 if they were in line, but they're in column. So we have that. So now that makes a 4. Then we can go to the rank bonus for the target, who they're firing at, which is in line. That leaves a rank bonus of 1, makes 5. There's no flank or rear attack, there's no terrain in play, and no support taking place. So we need to roll with 2 dice, 5 or less. And we rolled a 5, awesome. So we take the 5 and we look at the red die. The red die corresponds to our combat results. So the red die is a 1, which is the best we could roll, and not good for the British. So what has happened? Well, everything has happened. They've lost a strength point, first of all, so they've gone from a 4 to a 3. What else has happened? They must retreat. So they will retreat. They are panicked. So we'll mark that as well. And since a leader is attached to them, that leader is wounded. So we'll mark him as wounded. If he's wounded again, he's gone. So now we need to retreat 1 hex. There's no available hex to retreat into. That being the case, they lose another strength point. So we have really put a damper in this unit's plans. Great firing by this light infantry here, who again managed to, supposed to cause them to retreat, but they couldn't, so that means 2 strength points knocked out. They're panicked, and the leader is wounded, so that's the best possible result you could get. That brings us to the next infantry unit here on the other side of the tree, of the woods, and they are also within range. Going to fire at the same guys there, and it's going to be the same modifiers, I believe. Let's see, flank open, rank bonus. Yep, so it was 5 or less. Nothing's changed. And they could not roll a 5 or less. So that's that. What did we roll? We rolled a 9. So we'll mark them as having fired. Now they could have chosen to move. You don't have to fire, but I chose to fire. Try and soften up some of the guys here in front of me. It's also why I'm marking them, because you can't fire and move. You're firing or you're moving. That brings us to this artillery unit, which has a range of 5, I believe. Is that what I settled on? 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5. Unless it's horse. No, it's foot. So foot artillery has a range of 5. Horse artillery rather, Jesus, has a range of 4. Let's fire at 1, 2, 3 hexes away, which means +3. Alright, so we'll go down our modifiers for firing again. +3, full strength, so that's a 3 is 6. How many ranks for artillery? That is 1, so that's 7. And again, no terrain or flank or rear attack or support in play. We roll the dice, we need a 7 or less. We got a 5, that means we got our hit. We check the red die, which is a 3. A 3 on our combat results is simply remove a strength point. So now this 3 strength artillery unit is down to a 2. Some good shooting by the Frenchies. By the old French fries. Moving along, what else do we have within range? Do we have... Yes, we do. We have this artillery unit within range and on a hill, so we can fire over the troops in front of him. Who do we want? Let's fire at... I think we'll have to fire at this guy here. Or... No, yeah, let's fire here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, is that foot artillery as well? That is... Yeah, foot artillery. So, what is it? 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Where's my this? There it is. 4. Foot artillery at 4. That's a +2. Back to our diral modifiers. So 2 is their value for the distance. Unit strength is 3, so that's 5. And then in line, there that makes 6. And so it's just going to be 6 or less. We roll our 2 dice 6. Can we get a 6 or less? Yes, we can. We rolled a 5. Got a 3 on a red die, which means remove a stand. And this is kind of awesome because all the times I've play tested this before now, we don't typically get this many hits this fast. So that's kind of cool that this is happening. So there, marked as fired. Brings us to... They can't do a thing. This final unit here can fire this artillery unit, and we need to determine if that's foot. Yeah, that's foot as well. I think that's going to be maximum range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, it is. We'll fire at this British unit here with an attached leader. Firing that far away, maximum range, really only yields a +1 fire value. So, 1, unit strength is 3, that's 4. They're in line, so that's 5. We need to roll 5 or less. Rolling our 2 dice 6. We did not get it. We rolled a 9. So that's that. Mark them as fired. That is the end of our fire phase. Now we head to the movement phase, right? Am I wrong? No, that's right. So movement phase is, again, just what it sounds. You move. Unless you fired. Because if you're firing, you're not moving. If you're moving, you're not firing. Should be clear enough. Movement rates. What are the movement rates for these doodads? We've got, for infantry, it's 1 hex. Unless you're light infantry, it's 2, or rifles, it's 2 hexes. But, let's see, so, let me get this, and just go down the line here. Line is 1 hex, right? So we'll move them up. They are in column. You must be in column to move. If not, you conduct a formation change. So they moved. Let's mark them as moved. It's really the best thing to do is keep track of what everybody's done, especially when you have this many units in play. Which may not seem like a lot, or it may, but I think it's a bit many. Not in a bad way, but a bit many. So then it brings us to line unit here, who can move one. Let's bring them up. If we put them in the woods, they gotta be in open order, but you know, whatever. I don't want to put them in the open over there. So we'll move them up one into the woods in open order. And because I have handily halved each strip from Warlord so that they're 5 abreast instead of 10, I can represent all these things easily within these 4-inch hexes. Open order, so they're done and moved. Let's put it behind the unit for easy eye-catching. They need to move. Who are these fellers? Line. Only 1 hex. We'll pretend like they're on the bridge here. Heading. Actually, the bridge would be, yeah, right here. So, and everybody for the French is already in column. That's what's going on with them. Pretty much everybody, in fact, I think everybody for the British are in a line, except for the rifles are in open order. So they're currently moving across the bridge. Okay, these guys here, light cavalry, that can move up to 3 hexes. So that's kind of nice. 1, 2. If I move them 1, 2, 3, I can maximum put them right here. These are our lancers. 1, 2, 3, put them here. Cavalry within my rules are about as devastating as they need to be. Basically, if you didn't form square, you're screwed. Okay, this foot artillery unit, no, horse. Horse artillery, they can move 2 hexes. I need to mark those. And not fire. Which they didn't. So we'll mark that. Mark all these as moved. You know, actually, yeah, okay, that's fine. And since they're moved, though, they are now limbered. And we'll have to unlimber before they can do anything. So we must remember this. And then back over here, these guys are aligned. They need to move within range, so we'll move them up 1 to now be within firing range. Which is going to suck this turn, and you'll see why in a second. He was attached, so we'll move him with them. Mark them as moved. These markers I'm also using from Advanced Squad Leader. They're from the Solitaire Squad Leader game. You could get your move markers, your panic markers. Prep fire markers are part of any Squad Leader ASL stuff. And then moving these guys, we'll put them right here. It seems the way this is set up, rather cramped with soldiers. So that can prove interesting here as things move along. He's moved up 1, so we'll mark him as moved. And then, let's see, this guy should be light. Yes, he is. He can move 2. Don't know that I want to. We will simply move up to the hill, because I don't want to be adjacent to that British unit here. Is it 5 yet? Because the cat's doing that thing. Mark him as moved. The cat's doing that. I'm a clock and it's 5 o'clock. No, it's not. Got some time yet. Alright, so they moved. What do we have behind them? We have a line unit. We only move 1. Let's bring them around this way-ish. Off the hill. Which might be a good defensive position to stay in, but can't fire at anybody from there. What do we have here? Heavy cavalry. Were they 2? Heavy cavalry, 2 hexes. All right. Pretty much mostly moving at this point, as opposed to firing. 1, 2, that'll put him here. And 1, 2, put him here. We need to move our leader. Mark them as moved. Let's put him here. Also, you may or may not have noticed this. I didn't mention it. There are no official attached commanders and specific brigade units, battalions, etc. It's open, and I have to do it that way in order to play these scenarios. And the way that I do it works just fine. But that was a bugbear that I had wrestled with for some time on how to do this without assigning, arbitrarily assigning units to commanders, because that's not how it's done here. These guys, we have a line and a light, so this line will go here, 1 move up onto the hill. Nicely done. Nicely done. And I would add too that since these guys are broken up into a width of 5 instead of 10, they look better. They don't look quite so symmetrical, perfect, unnatural. Move him up. And this is light. Again, he can go 2, but there's our first tree. You know what that means? Do a shot. I have no booze in the house, so I won't be doing a shot. But for those of you out there keeping score, there's your first shot. Again, for those of you unfamiliar, whenever a tree falls over, you do a shot. All right. These are lights, so they can move too. Put them right here. Mark them as moved. These guys are line. Again, I kind of like where they're at, but it doesn't do us any good there as far as affecting any damage on the British. Move them up 1. What is this? This is foot. Let's move them up 1 onto the hill. I mean, you kind of got to do that. They'll be lumbered, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. Just trust me. Just trust me. Line, let's move them up 1. Again, everybody's in column. If they're not, they need to get in column, otherwise you're not moving. Because you're not moving in line. There's another line unit. Move them up 1. Put them there. We're getting there, folks. We're moving. We're getting there. Moving right along in many respects. He fired, so he's not doing anything. These guys are line. Let's move them up 1. Here. We have these 2 units here, a line and a light. And you know what? I need a victory banner there. There, victory banner. Because this is actually the Chapel de la Peña right here. So we need to mark that. Alright, so he's line. He can move up. Let's put him here without destroying everything. Can we do that? He's light, so he can move 2. 1, 2. Again, that's good for the next turn, but bad for this turn, and again, we'll see why. Mark them. can move 3, I believe, right? Yeah. Let's bring him up 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we have some like Hussars. Hussars here. Should be able to move 3. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Or, yeah. Put them right here within charge range. 2, 3. And mark them as moved. Alright, everybody that needs to move has moved. Our movement has taken place. That brings us to the next phase. This would be the defensive fire phase, and I've struggled a bit with whether or not to include this, and decided in the end that it should be included. So I've included it. So anybody that has, and here's still something I need to determine, but the way I've been doing it is I'd considered only allowing units that had moved to be fired at, but that doesn't make sense, and change it to if you're within range you can conduct defensive fire. So that means these two can fire. He can now fire because he moved within range, so there you go. And he's going to be able to fire, he'll be able to fire, he'll be able to fire. All kinds of defensive fire going on. Those two will be able to fire. He will not, because he's not. They're just outside of his firing arc, and the woods block that. He can fire. They cannot. They can. So yeah, let's knock all that out. This damn British, and they're aligned, so they get an extra strength point for doing so. Otherwise, they would only get 1 strength point if they were in column and firing. Okay, left to right. Let's start with these guys. These guys are going to fire, let's see, fire value of, well, I think they're, yeah, they're line, so British line, Jesus. They have a fire power of +2, whereas the French have a fire power value of +1. So a little bit better firing. The British are, while the French are a little bit better in melee. Alright, so +2, they're full strength, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Yep. 6, and then rank bonus for firing at column, which is bad for the French. That's going to be 2, so 8. So none of that's any good. However, we do have this woods here, and they should be in open order in those woods. 8. The woods brings it back down to 7. So if they're in open order, that also changes them. They're not in column. So we got to fix this. Let's start over. British are firing with a +2 fire modifier. They're full strength and line, so that makes 6. Number of ranks in open order is 0, and they're in the woods, so that drops it to 5. So 5 or less, and they got the hit. They did not get it. We will mark them just to keep track with a defensive fire marker. Again, that comes from squad leader. These guys got issues. Here's why. They're also line, which is a +2, but they're panicked, so they don't get a rank bonus, and they're half strength. So now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4. Firing at here, a unit in column. But they don't get that because they're panicked, so that's 4, and there's no terrain or anything like that, so that's just 4 or less. Watch, they'll get it. No, they missed it. Should add that when we're rolling our combat results, any natural roll of 2, regardless of our modifiers, is always a hit. Any roll of 12, regardless of our modifiers, is always going to be a miss. Let me check Panic real quick and make sure I did that right. Panic loses rank bonus for firing. Well, there you go. That's what I said it did. Alright. Next, this guy here. Now, I'll point something out here in a second. This also is French line, if I'm not mistaken, which I've made mistakes before. Yep, French line. So, +2, right? Because that's their fire value. They're in line and full strength, so that's a 6. They're in column, so that is an 8. But they're on a hill, so that drops it down to a 7. So 7 or less, they got an 8, so they missed. Now, if we were in melee, since he has an attached leader, we would note that, and if the attached leader had a die roll modifier, so his morale is a 7, but if he had a -1 or -2 or even a -3, we would factor that into the melee attack. That was firing, so we don't mess with it, and he's a 0 anyway. We have our rifles here, everybody's favorite unit in open order. Let's see, rifles. 1, 2, 3. That's going to be +2 as their fire value. Unit strength of 1, so that's 3. No rank bonus for these guys because they're in open order. And they're in the woods, so that's going to be 2 or less. Not very good odds. That's a 4, so obviously we didn't get that. Seems like a little harsh for our friends, our 95th Rifle friends. So being in open order in the woods is not good for firing at. Then we have our artillery unit here. Let's go ahead and see if... No, not doing it. We're firing at this unit in column, not in woods. 2 hexes away. Is that... it is foot artillery. So British foot artillery, any difference? No. At 2 hexes away, there's +4 fire value. Unit strength is 2 because they took a hit, so 6. Rank bonus, that's 8 because they're in column, so a 2 +2 for rank bonus, that makes 8. So 8 or less, and we got it, and we couldn't do it. Roll a 10. I'll say again, with 2 dice 6, your average dice roll is going to consist of a 7. Then we have a French line unit here, firing, and is he line or is he light? He is, yeah, he's a line unit. Okay. So that's +2, a strength of 4 makes 6, firing at a unit in column is 8. Surely he can pull that off, and he did. It's a 6, he got a hit, and the red die is a 3. The result of 3 is strength point removal, so they remove a strength point. These guys are also line. I'm not going to fire at the guys on the hill because we'll lose 1 point die roll modifier for doing that. Instead, we'll fire here at these guys. Again, same deal. Let's see, full strength is 6. Firing at these guys is an 8. 8 or less. You got it. It's a 4. Die roll. Red die is a 3, which again is a strength point loss. And guess what? I'm using these residual fire markers from Squad Leader to mark strength point losses. I think I'm going to run out of ones. So mark him. And mark, he fired, did he not? Yes, he did. And he fired. Whoops. Whoopsie. Alright, now for the British left flank. What we got going on here? What's going on over here? British left flank. We got a bunch of stuff, but yeah, okay, we do have within range. All right, starting here, make sure that's line, not light. You put the line in the coconut. So those guys are line, yes. Technically they're Portuguese too, which means they have a lesser unit value, but we're not going to worry about that. +2 full strength makes 4 because they're in line. In column makes 6, but they're on a hill, drops it back down to 5. 5 or less is what we're looking for. We rolled a 6, just missed it. So close, and yet so far. Same deal, right? 2, 4 makes 6. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But on a hill drops down to 7. We got that. That's a rolled a 6, and a red die has a 3, which again is 1 strength point removal. So we'll mark that and mark them as fired. Lots of strength points getting knocked out, I must say. Strength points getting knocked out. Right, okay. Same deal. 1, 2, and then 4 is 6. 7, 8 drops down to 7. 8, he missed it. He couldn't do it. He could not swing better. Rifles here, they don't have anybody in range because you could argue they have them in range, but they're outside of their... Well, they don't have an arc. I just remembered that. They have a 360 arc, 95th rifle, so they do have them within range. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to do anything because, honestly, fire value at 3 hex range for rifles is a 1. And they have a strength of 1. That makes 2. So I may have to adjust this because we're never going to get hits with 95th rifles, and that's something's not right with that. So I'll have to adjust their strength from a 1 to maybe a 3 or something like that. I can't even roll that, so there's something I got to work on. Monitor went to sleep, and I don't know why. All right, we're back. Hey, welcome back. So there's something I need to work on. The 95th Rifles is kind of broken right now. I'll have to up their strength value, which is really the only thing that's hurting them. Because I have them at a strength of 1, but we'll fix that. Not the end of the world. Then we have, I believe, another foot artillery unit there. Yes, foot artillery unit there. Firing at, well, they're going to fire at these guys in column on the river. 1, 2, 3. They'd be in column crossing the river. That wouldn't be open. All right, 1, 2, 3. That's +3. 4, 5, 6. 7, 8. 8 or less. They did that easy. And guess what? I read 3. Strength point removal. Can you even believe it? Mark them as defensive fired. I'm going to redo those 95th. What if we say, instead of the strength of 1, we're going to make them a strength of 3. And fire value of 1 makes 4. Drops it down to a 3 because they're on a hill. But they're in column. All right, start over. 3, 4 for the distance. 5, 6 because they're in column. But they're on a hill. It drops it down to a 5. Let's see what happens then. We still missed it, but that was way better than rolling a 1. So I'll just have to adjust their unit strength from a 1 to a 3 for firing. But anyway, let's mark them as defensive fired. finally, these last two units here. First fire. Let's see. These guys here, are these line or light? One is line, one's light. So first the line, strength of 4, fire value 2 makes 6, firing in a unit and column makes 8. Out of range though. So scratch that. These guys are not, and these are light. So British light, devastating. Look, +3. Full strength is 7. Firing unit column is 9. 9 or less? Yeah, I think they got that. They rolled a 6. The die, red die is not a 3 this time, it's a 4. That means they've caused this light unit here to panic. That's what that means. They're now panicked. And mark them as defensive fired. Unless they're a light, I think that's it. Who is that? They're line, so we're good. That's it. That's for the defensive fire phase. That brings us to the melee phase. Now, if anybody was adjacent, we would do melee, which is relatively simultaneous. Both sides would conduct melee. And then finally, for the French, that leaves, actually not finally, but penultimately, for the French, that leaves cavalry charges. Not able to charge 95th because they're so sparse and they will retreat. These guys are within range of that artillery unit though. These guys are not able to do anything. So these guys have something. These guys don't. These guys have something. So we got potential 3 charges going here. Let's take care of those. If we start our charge from here, which is 3 hexes, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. They can't roll. Yeah. All right, so we'll move them adjacent here. We're trying to charge with our lancers, this foot artillery unit. This foot artillery unit, if they we'll bring him with them so they get a bonus. If this foot artillery unit passes its morale check, I believe is what it needs to do, they can fire defensive fire instead of forming square, because they're not going to be able to form square, right? Let me pause that and verify that, and I got a guy I need to glue down. He's wobbling, and we'll come right back. Guy glued down, and yes, if we pass a morale check, we can fire at this charging cavalry. So the morale is standard for units. Infantry standard is 7, and standard morale for artillery and cavalry is 8. So they will need to roll an 8 or less. I feel like I lost my dice. I feel like they can pull that off. 8 or less. 6, 7, 8, 9. They do not get the shot off. And it's an automatic success. This is how charges work in my rules. They can't form square. They didn't get the shot off. The charge is a success. We simply roll our red die to see what we get. And with a red 3, we're all overly familiar with that result at this point. That is a loss of 1 strength point. So this unit has now lost 2 strength points and only has 1 left. Oh, that brings us back down to over yonder. Did we have something else? No. So they did, they couldn't, they did, they can't. 1 more unit here of hussars that can charge. We'll take them adjacent to the unit we want to attack. They will get a chance to form square. Now they need to roll a morale check, which is a 7 or less, but there's a modifier to that depending on the distance that this cavalry unit started charging, which is the maximum distance. So where's that should be just plus 1, I believe. Square, yeah. So yeah, just plus 1. So 7 or less, we're adding 1 to the die roll for the distance charge. He got a 6, so he's forming a square all day long. The charge is unsuccessful, and it's simply just a regular melee at this point. So let me form square, which I can do now within the hex. Why? Because, yeah, that's right. Because I broke these guys in half, and they are 5 wide now. There's our, look at that. And the squares were actually more rectangles. They called them squares, but historically, in reality, they did resemble rectangles more than squares. So now it's a regular melee attack. And we gotta roll it up. So let me pause again and make sure I do this right, because I want to make sure I get it right. All right, hold on. Hey, welcome back. All right, so there is a -5 die roll combat die roll modifier for melee versus a square. Let's see what this is. So as light cavalry, French light cavalry, which has that's a +2. They're full strength. That makes 5. Anything else? Charging against square. What's the rank bonus for charging square? Nothing. So see, how does this work? Because if it's a 5, that's all we have to work with, but it's a -5. That might be a little too harsh as well on the die roll modifier there. Otherwise, there's nothing you can do. Which may be right, may be accurate. Maybe they couldn't do anything against a square. So, go to my next question. Can unit and square melee back? Let me pause and verify that. Alright, welcome back. So, what I've deduced is that since these guys charge a square, they're now panicked, and they cannot fight in melee because they're in the square. So, that's done. So, that is essentially the end of the French turn. Then it would be the British turn, and that would be the end of turn 1. And there are, again, since we're following the scenarios that Commands and Colors has provided for us, there are no set amount of turns, but there are a set amount of victory banners that you need to acquire. So for this particular scenario, they're talking 13 victory banners. Now, bear in mind, again, this is not solely just wiping out a unit. Remember, we have a number of towns, which is what all these victory banners on the table represent, that are available and qualify as a victory banner if they're taken or lost. And then also, there is no route result as such on the combat results table. Well, what happens is if a panic unit panics again, it routes. Now, what can happen with that is you can route off the table, and if that happens, that is also the end of that unit. Essentially, it's eliminated for game purposes, and that would count as a victory banner as well. We've got enough units that have been pelted and lost strength points, so we're moving right along in that respect. As far as the rest of the French phase, we would clean up anything like these defensive fires, move markers, or prep fires, and take them and get them off the table. That's all we really need to do with that. Actually, with the artillery, I would leave them on to represent needing to unlimber if they move. Otherwise, we're going to forget that, and that's kind of important. Mark these guys. So it went pretty well, as it typically does. I need to adjust make one minor tweak with the 95th rifles. Instead of having them as a base strength of 1, they need to be a base strength of, just like any other infantry unit, 3 or 4. And then with the die roll modifiers for cavalry, charging versus square, a little too harsh, I think. And that's it. Everything else seemed to work out just fine and dandy. French made all their command rolls, which helped them a lot at the start. That way individual units didn't have to roll for command to do anything, so that helped out a lot. And so yeah, any questions, comments, suggestions, feel free to post at the bottom of this video, and I will do my best, as always, to answer them to the best of my ability. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Am I wasting my time? Probably. Yeah, any constructive criticism, any suggestions, etc., always welcome. You guys sometimes notice things or have ideas regarding things I haven't considered, which is always appreciated. But we were running about an hour, which is typically I go a little longer, but I have to say I rode the bike today and I've done a little this and a little that, and my back is definitely fussing. It's time to feed the cat, and it's time to figure out what to eat myself. So there's that. All right, guys, that should be about it. These rules, I'm like 95% there. Once I feel like I can post them and they're ready to be used and played with minimal headache, I will post them freely. I think it's a great idea personally. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but again, there are so many commands and colors scenarios out there, and they're laid out for you already. If only there was a way you could hijack them and use them and be able to play them in a way that is a little thicker than the commands and colors system. I think I've done that in essence. So we'll see what you guys think, and I look forward to feedback on that as well once I post those rules. All right, I've droned on long enough, and I'll cut you guys loose. I hope you guys are doing well. I'll talk to you soon.